guys, Marty Schwartz here with Marty Music, hanging out with my main guitar teacher that I had in my life that taught me the most, that now I've been able to take and pass on to you guys. And he's right here, Chris Sherland.
Hey!
Yo, man. It's always nice to hang with you, my friend.
So good to see you
So
again.
this is my guitar mentor right here. He's got his own YouTube channel that you've been working on for a few years now? How long?
3 years, yeah.
3 years.
About 3 years, yeah. It seems
Time
like,
flies.
yeah, maybe it's either just yesterday or a long time ago.
Yeah, and so once again, thank you for all your great tutelage, and I'm so excited that you've been out there, passing it on to other people as well. I've passed a lot of it on myself.
And I see that. I noticed in your videos, like, that looks familiar to me.
Yes.
But, I think I owe you a debt of gratitude because, when I left the sort of corporate thing to get back into music, I really looked at you and said, man, look, he's been so successful. And then I called you up and you're like, hey, what's up, man? Just like you always do. But you really gave me a leg up and I appreciate that.
Well, I was happy to, and that's a good horse to bet on. Not everyone knows that's watching, but you taught me in college. It was a college that's actually not there anymore. I went to this college actually as a film student who was just starting to get really into playing guitar and harmonica. Had no musical knowledge, but I was like learning the basic chords, kind of knew the pentatonic a little bit, only had played acoustic, hadn't played electric, studying film at this college but hanging out with all the musicians. They were the coolest guys, and going to the music forums where the music majors performed. So I was really into it. I wasn't part of that program, but I was like, they were the cool guys, and I was wanting to play with musicians and stuff.
When I first saw you, you were pretty hungry for guitar. I mean, I didn't see you as a film major, but of course I didn't know you that well. But it looked like you were like full-blown music at that point. Did something change for you? Were you just
I only had started playing guitar like probably less than a year before I met you. That's not enough to like go, oh, I'm gonna go to college for music. It was my friends that showed me guitar, not a guitar teacher before I met you. And when it was like that communal hangout, it's my buddy, it's a D chord, and then you hang out a little more. It's not this like regimented guitar lesson.
Right.
And when it was done that way to me, all of a sudden I was like, oh crap, it's not as hard as I thought it was.
Right.
It was just people weren't teaching me the right way to like get me to get into it. So when I met you, yes, I was just hungry to get better.
Yeah.
It became the perfect storm to take, 3 or 4 years and like excel. So you were my YouTube channel, you know?
Ah, right, of course, back in the day.
After studying with you for a year, what got really good is, it only took one lesson a week with you, but I would take a lesson. It'd be something that I just voraciously ate up. Then I would go back to the dorms and keep doing it. But then later that night, we would always have a jam rehearsal. We rehearsed basically every night because we were kind of learning to play too. But so I could take something from you, go and practice it for endless hours because I was into it.
And apply it right away.
And then go jam and add it into incorporate it into what we were doing.
And that's a super rare thing. I mean, unless you have some sort of formal education or some sort of guidance like that, most people don't get that sort of, that ability to apply it right away.
Yeah.
Like when I went to music school, it was the same thing. But I think, before that, and you just mentioned this, learning D or G or whatever from a friend, a lot of the information that we get as guitar players is like, I feel like it's tribal. Like we are a tribe of guitar players and maybe we don't all speak the language at the same level. So we just look at each other like, hey, what's that? Blah, blah, blah. But then how do you take that to the next level? And you've got to have some way of taking it from a lesson and then moving it through practice and then moving it to performance somehow. It's a really, really rare opportunity.
Only now playing for 30 years do I look back and see that one of my strengths was that any little technique, piece of theory, or scale pattern, anything, I always was really quick to make it into music.
Right. So how did you do that?
Naturally.
Just naturally.
Just creative.
It was a superpower.
Just like an artistic leaning.
Yeah.
As opposed to like a analytical.
Yeah.
Some people are more like engineer minds.
Right.
And then other people are more like art, painter, creative writing mind. That was always me.
Yeah. But either way, you do have to take a step between learning something and then turning it into something else. So did you like move it around the neck and take like a thing and like
if you taught me
how do you extend that knowledge?
If you taught me I could immediately start playing it over a. I've just kind of start to feel it out, but then I could go pretty quickly. I could go turn it into an actual musical phrase as opposed to just.
Right.
I was always really quick to be able to go.
Just really experimentation, right? Take one idea and you just milk it and you just say, I've got a framework for something now and I'm going to move it around and just, turn my education into music is exactly what you're talking about. And so, you don't necessarily need to say, well, what happens when I go to the D? Just go to the D. Just tell the story of the D, somehow. And if it's just this, that's totally the A. You can hear it happening, right? Where's your
fear and thinking are a bad recipe when it comes time to improvise a song.
Right, yeah, of course.
Fear and overthinking, right? But practice is where you're thinking.
Right.
And microanalyzing and working on little elements of it. And then ultimately you want to just be in a flow state.
Yeah, but it takes a minute to get there, you know?
Oh, yeah, and I remember, and I was telling your students that, they're most likely not going to see the same progress in themselves because it's this slow, very slow evolution.
Yeah.
But I remember my good students, you teach them once a week.
Yeah.
And if they're really into it, you can see major growth that week later as the teacher.
Right.
But they were just a little bit every day.
Yeah, and I think the expectation of how good you get, how fast you get that good is really polluted by, how much stuff there is out there, on the internet. And I would sort of blame us for, having to put out a bunch of new stuff and you put out the lick of the week or whatever it is. And then somebody learns that and they're like, okay, I'm almost there. But really it's, without sustained effort over time and real focus, you don't get to that flow state. You always have to be thinking. And when all the, you hear the great players say, well, I'm in the zone and I don't think about anything. They spent a lot of frickin' time thinking about a lot of frickin' things to get to a place where they didn't have to think about anything.
Yeah, frickin' A. Let's talk about just you and your history a little bit. You were born and raised in Southern California.
Los Angeles, California, yeah. And
how'd the guitar find its way into your life?
I think it was Do You Feel Like I Do, We Do by Peter Frampton. I heard it on the
he lives
radio.
Here in town.
And it was just like, that is something I really want to do.
And that vocoder solo, the talk box solo.
It was really the talk box solo first, but after a couple listenings, it was all the other stuff he was doing.
Yeah.
And the intro was incredible, and I just didn't know what that was, and it sounded really compelling. So that's when I was like, hey, Mom, you got to get me a guitar. And she was like, yeah, we'll see what happens. But, I was self-taught for a bunch of years. And I got pretty good, I guess you would say, like, I'm one of those people who had a decent amount of musical understanding going in that was intrinsic and not necessarily, taught or scholastic. And so I got to a place on the guitar where I thought I was pretty good. And I remember going to this jam session and we're playing Louie Louie, right? And so, everybody's getting set up and the keyboard player was leading the thing. He's like, all right, everybody, let's go. So I started like this. And he stopped the entire band and he's like, well, let's stop. And this is like my first jam session. And he points at me in front of everybody. He's like, that's the wrong chord. And I'm like, what? No, it isn't. It's like, and he says, that E is supposed to be minor. And I didn't even know a minor chord. And I was so humiliated that I thought, I love this thing so much, but I never want to be in that position again. And I thought the whole cycle of like tribal learning is not doing it for me because I just got roasted.
All right, play it with the minor though.
So yeah, so this is the real way to play it. But I didn't even know what a minor chord was back then. So I just felt so, deflated. And I said, I'm either going to smash this thing and light it on fire and drown in my tears, or I'm going to go do something about this. And that's when I decided to go to music school. And that changed everything, just like the experience you had. Like you come in hungry and then suddenly, oh, there's so much more to know about this. And there's some, logic to this thing. And once you unpack that and you get some guidance about how that goes, everything starts flowing smoother. And then you're speaking the language and you're putting the appropriate language on the fretboard. And it's that tribal knowledge that has these real blocks in it where, you learn a cool chord, oh, here's the latest chord of the day. It's, E minor 9 or whatever, E minor. But can you do anything with that? Do you know anything else about it? And if it's isolated there, then it just sits there and it dies. And if you don't do something with it, like you said, take it to a rehearsal, move it into some music, write a song with it, then you lose it, right?
Yeah.
And if you learn this language and you learn how the fretboard is designed and why it's done, tuned the way it is, you can take new information and expand upon it and just own it right away.
What's the first thing you ever learned on guitar?
The
first riff, or it could be a little chord thing.
Well, as much as I'm no longer a fan, it was this, I think.
Nice. Cat Scratch Fever.
Yeah.
And that is right from the family of...
So I got a question for you, and I don't think I know the answer to this, but did Blackmore play that open, or did he play it on this? Did he go like this?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not this.
Yeah, I don't think so. And it's certainly not...
It's certainly not that. So it's really all in that pentatonic box.
Yeah, I think he's in that.
And then this is my favorite part.
Yeah.
That bass line climbing up in there.
So I know, since we've known each other so long, I know that you never stopped being passionate about playing guitar, but you stopped doing music for a career. Right around the time I graduated college, you left Santa Fe and moved to Colorado and worked in software?
I had been trying to make a living as a musician, and so I was in a band, teaching at the college, working at a music store, doing lessons. I mean, it was all music all the time, and I really started to get grumpy about the whole thing. And then I realized I still didn't have enough money to pay for car insurance,
It sounds exactly like me.
What the heck am I going to do, right? So I went the other route, and I just went into software for a while. But that was also like a soul-sucking nightmare. And finally getting back to music was really inspirational for me. And one of the things that I really helped me get back to it was realizing how much music school meant to me and how much it meant to me to actually reconnect with an instrument and take it to another level. And being able to provide that for other people was super huge for me. And I remember, even the look on your face at a lesson where I would play something and you'd be like, no way, what? And I'd say, see, it's just like this and this. And I could see the wheels going click.
One of the things I remember, where I can visualize sitting in the practice room with you and you showing it to me for the first time.
Do we need that dream sequence thing where the thing goes...
Diddle-doo, 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 diddle-doo. And it's the whole tone
It is the whole tone scale, isn't it?
Yeah. Whoa! 1994. Okay, a D major chord. It's got a D, an A D again, and what's called the third is an F sharp. Classic D, everyone can do it. One of the first chords I ever learned. The first chord I ever learned. Right? Chris showed me an inversion for the first time, and an inversion is where you have a note other than the root of the chord as the lowest note. Did I define that right?
Close enough.
Okay, or in the bass.
Yeah.
So what he did was he took the F sharp, which is also on the 4th fret of the D string, and we changed the fingering around to the middle finger now on the root here, index on that 5th, which is the A, and ring finger on that. And now you have this as a D major chord instead. I mean, that took me, I couldn't, that was
It
hard.
takes a minute.
Yeah, I wasn't
That's
just
a hard
like,
voicing to get when you're...
I wasn't like immediately rocking it. I was
right.
Tongue halfway out.
Yep.
Michael Jordan. What? How do you do that? But then eventually you can kind of bar it behind that and then get. Yeah. Yeah. And guess what? You go to the 4-chord G. A little different than.
Yeah, right. So were you able to take that and take it to the band right away? I mean, that was when you were in that space where you could take that information.
Yeah, pretty much. But to me, it would have been like, instead I would have first gone.
Right. Yeah.
No, like embellishments.
Yeah.
But
that's
a lot
the
of
first-
songs have D in it.
And that's the first step. I mean, you can't just run to Jimi Hendrix.
Chris is in town because he had a guitar clinic with a bunch of students. It was awesome. But I told them, you gave me a foundation to where I could then spend the next 30 years still learning new things and figuring these things out because of the fundamentals.
Exactly. Then you have a way to attach information to stuff you already know.
Right.
And if you don't have that, it's likely to just fade away, especially if you don't get to it. You're going on a trip or something and you don't have your guitar in your lap, suddenly it's gone. But if you attach it to stuff you already know, you're like, oh, I remember that. I see it. Now I get it. Oh, and that must mean that this other thing is also true.
Once again, want to thank my guitar mentor that taught me the most in my life, Chris Sherland right here. His site and brand, the thing that you've put together, is called the Guitarist.
Guitarist, yep.
And we have links below for you to check out.
That would be great.
And then on top of that, Chris and I made a Music Theory 101 course that's available at martymusic.com. I mean, talk about a valuable course. It's gotten great feedback too.
It really connects the dots, like we were talking about, between that sort of tribal knowledge exchange versus how does this thing actually work.